Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Elderkin, if you could leave the room.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans. And for the invocation tonight, we have Reverend Rick Maisano.
As we stand here, we won't be meeting until Memorial Day is over. So I think it's so appropriate that we think about the country we have and the people who spilt their blood and lost their lives to have the freedoms that we have and we enjoy today. So please try to make any Memorial Day festivities that you can to remember those who have fallen and remember our veterans of what they went through, and some who are in their 90s, 80s, 70s, and lower. But it's just the idea is you start to look at some of these guys and they're passing away fast. And we want to thank God for them, for their lives and what they put on the line for us. Father, as we stand before you today, we are very thankful for the nation we have. We thank you, Father, for the men and women who stepped forward and, Father, put their lives on the line and lost their lives, that we have the freedoms we have today. We're not speaking German and we're not speaking Japanese. And Father, we just thank you, Father God, that Father, you kept this nation together. So Lord, I pray, Father, this day, that Father God, as we convene today at this town board meeting, that everything would be done decently in order, that Father, our elected officials will listen to the people for what they have to say. And Father God, that everything will be done today, Father, be according to your will. We pray also, Father, for our first responders, our police, our fire, and Lord, we ask your blessing, for we ask these things in the mighty name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You may be seated.
Councilmember Barbara Bukowski. Here. Councilmember Monica Elderkin. Here. Councilmember Tiffany Lewis. Here. Councilmember Stephen Nowicki.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Nowak.
Present.
All are present.
Welcome to the May 12th, 2026 meeting of the Cheektowaga Town Board. We are going to get started with our next order of business, and that would be our public comment period. And this is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. Okay, our first speaker this evening is Dawn Filipski.
Hello. All right, so resolution 295, the re-roofing of the garage, highway department garage. I just am curious why it took so long to get into a resolution. It should have probably been done last year. 296, the solar, I'm still against that. Not sure why you guys feel the need to reverse what was discussed already last year, but I'm against it. Number 311, in support of the New York State Health Act. Not sure why that's even being brought up here. That really is not anything to do with the town at this point. However, after reviewing what that is, I just want to know any of the sponsors who are willing to currently give up their health insurance right now today. you're willing to sponsor something that, or send your support that is actually a socialist type of a program where everybody in New York State's going to be on the same health insurance program. So, are you guys willing today to give up your health insurance? I pretty much doubt it. And I certainly don't want to keep paying for everybody else's health insurance other than what we currently do. Resolution 320, the civil engineer for the highway department. Who's going to be the supervisor? Is this position now totally in the highway department and out of engineering? What union is this job going to be in? I don't feel like those things were put forward anywhere that I saw. So those were the questions that I had regarding that. I think that's it. Thank you.
We have 4 other speakers signed up. Our next is Sandy Prisblack.
The ringer's off. I went green. I'm going to read it from my phone instead of printing it tonight. Can you hear me? You have a packed agenda tonight, so let's see if I can get my 3 minutes in. Resolution 2026-273, authorize highway to assist the Village of Sloan with road repaving. I was unable to attend the April 28th board meeting and was surprised and disappointed by some of the board and public comments regarding this resolution when I watched the video the following day. The Village of Sloan is approximately 10% of the land area of the town of Cheektowaga and has 5 Department of Public Works employees. The town of Cheektowaga has 65 highway employees and additional equipment the village doesn't have to facilitate road repair and maintenance. Sloan provides materials such as asphalt and the insurance to cover the village and town employees who work on the projects. For over 20 years, these assistance resolutions have been in place with no objection. Sloan residents pay town and village taxes and should expect this resolution to be passed as in the past. Resolution 2026-296, adopt local law number 5 of 2026 to repeal yada, yada, yada. I'm confused by this. Is this to memorialize the resolution that passed at the April 28th meeting? Residents should have the opportunity to install green energy systems such as solar panels and be eligible to receive a tax exemption equal to the increased property value of these systems. In my opinion, small businesses should have the opportunity for an exemption as well. Every effort should be made to encourage transition to sustainable energy. Resolution 2026-311, support for the New York Health Act. I support this resolution. Health insurance premiums and the cost of care have risen exponentially over the last 20 years plus, far more than the rate of inflation. Private health insurance covers less and less of these costs, which are passed on to the consumer as high deductible plans, increased co-pays, and denials of care for those that can even afford health insurance premiums. The New York Health Act would cover everyone, includes vision, dental, and long-term care. And I forgot to add it in, I do support the position for Mark Crystal to be town engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, I've got a Linda B. I can't fully read the last name, forgive me. Banner, okay, thank you.
I'm hoping if you can hear me. I'm a resident. This is the first time I've ever been talking here, so excuse me. I've lived in Cheektowaga for my whole life, and I've just started watching the meetings last year after I retired. And I just have a couple things that I feel I need to say, because I complain about it to myself every day. It seems as if it's just a lot of talking and a lot of meetings and nothing really getting done, or bills being, or whatever you want to call them, resolutions being passed 1 year after having public meetings and the public talking about it, and they're being passed, and it took 6 months to pass it. Now we're taking 4 months to repeal it. I just feel that it's just a lot of talking, a lot of changing, and you never see anything really get done. A couple of the things has to do with the opting out of the solar energy, 296, and then the sewer town project law, which was passed, and now we're repealing it. And a couple of years ago, I guess it was the highway department wanted to do the streetlights. Now we have to pay another company to fix it, when we thought it was a good idea to have the highway department do it. And now we have a company fixing it. And I thought they were just going to fix it if we couldn't. But the other day I was out and I seen this company fixing all these lights in front of my house too. And I don't know how they fixed it, but it doesn't shut off. It's on 24 hours a day. And I did go online and put it in there and say that it's on there 24 hours a day, but it wasn't even broken, but the company came and fixed it. And then also, I think we wasted time and money, and we knew we were going to have the hotel tax passed, and I understand it wasn't passed to a certain time and you had to investigate, but I just feel that you should have did that all and figured out how you're going to do it a year ahead of time, even before it was passed, because you knew it was going to be passed. And now we're wasting time and still didn't collect the money that we need desperately for the town. So that's just some stuff I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Christine Walsh.
Good evening. Again, like Linda, this is my first time speaking, so I'm a little new. Bear with me. I live on Maryvale Drive, and I'm in the dead end of Maryvale Drive, so at the corner of Beach. So we know Maryvale Drive is a county road until you get to the dead end, and then they claim it's a town road. Is it a town road? Is it a county road? Is it a town road? Well, I've lived in that house for 15 years, almost 16 years, and I haven't gotten an answer. So I did email Supervisor Nowak, and he was gracious enough to answer me, which was much appreciated. And I'm not sure if you recall our conversation, on phone conversation and email exchange. And you had mentioned that this road is considered an orphaned road. So I did a little research on what exactly an orphan road is in New York State, and there is a law actually that speaks on what an orphan road is and what happens to that. And so according to that, if it really truly is an orphaned road, the town where that road resides in would be taken over the maintenance. So that's why I'm here today. The road itself is tore up, and it's been tore up for the whole time I've been there, but it's the worst it's ever been. And when the county fixed that end, they had dump trucks and fruit loaders running back and forth on our part of the road, which is not good enough to fix, but good enough to tear up. So now you see rebar, you see huge, huge potholes. Now I know there's potholes all over the town, and they are working on getting those repaired. I'm just wondering if mine would be considered as well, being that there's always the debate. Is it a county road? Is it a town road? So that's why I'm here today to speak. And I'm not sure how I get those answers. And so I guess that's all I needed to say at this time. So I might, if possible, email you again, Supervisor, and see if you could point me in the direction of who I need to. I did put in a request with the town with pictures of the holes that are on this road. And I did note that we did have a conversation about the road being orphaned, so to speak. So
Gotcha.
that's all I had. And thank you for your time.
Absolutely. All right, thank you. And our final speaker is Jessica Greenwald.
All right, I'm shooting from the cuff a little bit here, but gonna do my best. For the resolution with the New York Health Act, I want to say that I support it. For the people that read the resolution, it seems like a no-brainer. Our town would save $4 million. I'm a chronically ill person, and I've dealt with insurance my entire adult life, and it's a nightmare, and I would welcome a different solution. I think people really quickly jump to oh, that's socialism. But so are libraries, and so are your roads getting paved, and so is Social Security and disability insurance. So we need to stop acting like this is some big scary thing. As far as the solar exemption goes, I do wish that large businesses could be cut out of that, but if we wait for a perfect solution, I don't think we'll ever make any progress. I think we got to do what we can now. And those were the big things I wanted to talk about. I did want to bring up also, I've been talking about Flock since the end of February with you guys, and I think that we just missed our auto renewal cancellation date. That's like almost $60,000 a year contract from what I can see. And if you guys are paying attention to what's happening nationally, you'll see that these contracts are getting canceled literally all over the place. A guy in Berkeley, California was just warning his town about millions of dollars in potential lawsuits for Fourth Amendment violations. That's the same in New York as it would be in California. It's a federal law, something to consider. And yeah, that's all I got for today. Thank you.
I do appreciate it. Thank you. All right, before we move any further, I have got a proclamation for a representative.
Supervisor,
Yes.
I do have one comment that came in via.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay.
We had an email that just came in tonight, forwarded to me. It is from Vicky Leader. She has comments about the 2026-311 bill, which is support the New York Health Act. She says, I am completely in opposition to this bill. Socialized healthcare will kill more New Yorkers than it will help. Look at Canada, for example, people waiting months for simple tests. It's an insane agenda, and who pays? Taxpayer as usual.
Moving on, we have a representative from AMR with us this evening, and I'd like to call John up to the front. I've got a proclamation for AMR's representative in honor of EMS Week, which is May 17th and May 23rd. So if the board would join me up front, I'd like to read it off and present it to our representative from AMR. All right, so once a year near the end of May, all over the world, we honor EMS Week. So I've got a proclamation for you and all fine folks in AMR, so I can read that off. This is whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency care provided by AMR dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness and injury. And whereas emergency medical services fill healthcare gaps by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. Whereas EMS services consist of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. Whereas members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Service Week. Now, therefore, I, Supervisor Brian Nowak, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the following week, May 17th to 23rd, 2026, is Emergency Medical Services Week here in the town of Chickasaw. As the 52nd anniversary of EMS, I want to thank you and EMR and all the other folks that do their part to make sure that all the residents of our town community with the variety of needs are taken care of on a daily basis, 24/7 around the clock. And it's worth noting that the folks in space at AMR, they cross paths with the officer firemen. They service dispatchers. They may go on to future careers in nursing, all these other areas that are covered. So the folks that come through your doors, the folks that are with you now, are doing God's work and making sure that we have a happy and healthy community. So I really appreciate you and all the folks at AMR doing this for you. Thank you so much. Bring us to our next order of business, which would be our public hearing for the evening. And that would be for local law intro number 4 of 26, a local law to amend the town of Cheektowaga taxation law.
Call for public hearing was made at the April 28th, 2026 Town Board meeting, Resolution 2026-291, to discuss the proposal of amending the Town of Cheektowaga taxation law, Article 11, occupancy tax by way of local law intro number 4 of 2026. Tonight, all persons interested are able to provide comment.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second? Second from Councilmember Nowicki. All in favor?
Aye.
This public hearing is officially open. And Attorney Fowler, if you can take a moment to explain in brief why this local law was introduced and what the intent of it is?
I apologize. Can you just remind me which one this is? I just don't have it called up.
The hotel bed tax.
All right. We had passed the hotel bed tax law last year. Obviously, we've had, I don't want to call it a difficult time, but we've had a couple speed bumps here in getting it implemented. But we had some issues in the tax, primarily that we had a single position that was identified as the position to which our hotels would report. And that was our comptroller's position. With the elimination of the comptroller's position, there was a need to briefly change some of that language back to the town of Cheektowaga. And whoever it is that this board will appoint to be responsible for that, but we don't have that position anymore. So it was just sort of elimination of some language that was superfluous at the time, or became superfluous. And then there was some other language that had to do with the timing of both reporting and collections by the hotels. In discussions with the hotels, it was brought to our attention that the window that we gave them, both for reporting and then for remittance, they were very tight windows with their fiscal calendars. And that language, if I'm not mistaken, was simply a matter of, I don't want to call it ease, but it made the steps that they had to follow a little more reasonable given the calendars that they follow. It doesn't change the amounts that are due. It changes our laws, language for reporting timelines.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And with that, we do have one speaker on stack for public comment. That would be Sandy Prisblack to speak on the proposed local law.
May I ask Attorney Fowler a question?
Please.
So what's on the website now is the corrected or not corrected? Because that's what I read today, was the chapter 220 that's on the website.
I don't know the answer because I don't know what is up right now.
Okay, it's probably the old.
If it has the word comptroller in it, it is the old version.
Okay, I will have to reread it.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I don't know what they've posted or where it was posted.
Okay, so I went by what was posted on currently on the website, and I just said the only comment I have is I reviewed and support the collection of the occupancy, AKA bed tax, as documented in the town code. But if it needs to be changed because of the comptroller, I understand that. Thank you.
That was our only speaker signed up for public comment. Before we close this public hearing, do any of the council members wish to speak on the proposed local law?
Just that I think what's online is still the old version. It says comptroller, so I don't think it's been updated yet.
Gonna need some minor changes, I agree.
I will comment on that. If you're looking under the town code, it will continue to be the old code until you guys obviously pass something new, then it would get updated. So what's on there is most likely the old version.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Councilmember Bukowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This public hearing is closed. That moves us on to board discussion. Next up would be old business. Is there any old business from council members? Councilmember Thompson, the floor is yours.
It pertains to trainings. So I know something that we've speak about previously, we're creating a training committee. And I know there was an accident in town recently with workers, and they were not town employees, but irregardless, it just piqued my memory to kind of circle back on this and see if there is an interest in maybe resurrecting that conversation. I couldn't tell you where it landed back then, but just wanted to see if that's something anybody else has interest in discussing or.
Absolutely. I think there's a need to look at training. We put some money in the budget for training, especially in the highway department side of things. The issue in question got me thinking about our safety committee and what our safety committee does. And I've got to do follow-up, but the day I heard about the accident, I reached out to the general foreman at the highway department to talk with him a little bit about, at least on the highway department side of things, what our town employees are doing in terms of safety. He was already on the case, and we were talking about bringing up safety related issues in this particular accident as an example of the type of things to be prepared for in the future. I also reached out to folks through the contractor to check in on the individual that was injured. I've got to do an additional follow-up on that. But we have the safety committee already in existence. I think that we've got labor management meetings as well. I am all for creating a trading committee in addition. If that's something this board would like to do, I would encourage us to look through the existing committees that we have in town, the existing meetings and relationships that are already there, to see if we can add training as an element to that. If that's not a total fit anywhere, I do see a need for having standalone meetings dealing with training.
Maybe not a designated committee, but I know, as most of you do, we do have budgeted funds for training and want to just make sure that it's being used appropriately or at all. So just.
Because I could see it if we want to bring in outside consultants for particular situations, if we wanted to send our employees to any particular trainings, any schools, anything like that, that we do have money in the budget to do those kind of things. And let's say we want to do it for employees that are outside of the highway department. And if we don't have enough money in, I don't know, let's say the sanitation budget for the sake of argument, it would be hard to do a budget transfer necessarily, but I would have no issue personally if we held back a little bit of the funds in the highway department and maybe went into the reserves just a few $1,000s to deal with training and sanitation budget if we're not fully budgeted there. I would just want to see that it balance out with whatever we budgeted for training in the year, that we don't exceed the total of those budget lines. Does that make sense? But absolutely, I think it's something should be revisited. I'm sure it's going to be brought up at the next safety committee meeting. I'm sure it's something department heads have already spoken with about their employees, especially in the sanitation department, the sewer department, the highway department. I'm sure the folks in the police department have thought about this, because anytime somebody's injured on the job, on the road, anyone that's working outdoors is thinking about what they have to do to readjust their practices.
Did you have an idea of what you were looking for with that? Whether it was like just the construction crews or the blue collar trades or town-wide, or just kind of getting the conversation started to make sure it happens?
Taking up the conversation, because I know it happened last year. I just, like I said, don't know where that conversation landed, if anywhere. And with that incident that happened recently, it kind of jogged my memory to say, hey, maybe we should discuss this. I know the director of emergency management, Jay Tolsma, does focus on trainings a lot too, so I don't know what he has kind of already in the pipeline going for this year, if anything. So it's more of a to start the conversation so that someone up here who cross paths with these individuals, we can collectively focus on.
And going back to the safety piece, it's an ongoing concern throughout our town. And it's one of those things that we should be checking in and seeing what programs in place, what practices are going along. But I know when I ask anybody among our department heads about what we do for workplace safety, there are always specified answers. We do X, Y, Z. We have this practice. We have that practice. The folks that are running our departments are able to get into the details and the minutia about the type of things they do, whether it's safety gear, safety practices that they're relaying to employees.
Are there two council members already assigned to this committee, like other committees, or is it just a committee and there's no town board members on it?
Well, I've been attending the last couple of safety meetings, and after that accident, I have already contacted Jason Tolsma also, and I'm sure next week, I believe next week Thursday is our meeting, and I'm sure we're going to address that.
Yeah, it's not a committee that's within the committee structure where I appoint two council members at any given time. But as I say at the beginning of the year, when I issue the committee assignments, it's an effort to divide and conquer the work, to say that each person's got to get a certain area. So with that said, it's something that's established within the TCEA contract. If you go through, you'll find a safety committee listed within there. So it exists by virtue of that contract. And I would say any three council members at any given time that feel they want to go, I would encourage and invite you guys to go to any and all those meetings, so long as we don't create a quorum and make any decisions in that room, and listen to the town attorney about that.
Not to add anything on your guys' plate, but kind of going back to what Linda said, I mean, she's dead on. I mean, we talked about it a year ago and now something happened, so it's resurfacing again. So now we're talking about it now. So it doesn't die off again for another year or longer. Barb says she's already going, and Vern, you're the one asking the questions. If you've got time also on Thursday, if you can go, and then just come back and report to the board where we're at with everything and what was talked about.
I think it's a good path forward, and if there are things we need to deal with training outside of that safety committee or existing meetings, we could take those items up on an issue by issue basis. Anything else on that topic before we move on? Any other old business? Okay. One of the things I brought up at the previous meeting was taking a look at the budget document. We were going through the general fund a couple weeks ago, and we were going through the budget document a couple weeks ago about line by line budget expenses for the general fund. I did plan on taking some time this evening to get some of the other budgets, like the consolidated garbage district, the sewer district, and some of those other smaller districts. Without going line by line, I figured the best practice here was just to mention that, see if any council members had particular questions within the remainder of the budget year to date. And we can deal with those questions and then move on to new business. So I'll open it up to the floor for just a moment here with the council members, see if there's any other questions about any budget lines within those other portions of the town budget.
I know for myself and the supervisor, we've been keyed in on it just because it's our department, but I believe this is a pump that there's a few pumps that basically we don't really have we have one backup for each of our lift stations, but not even a backup because one of them's out for service right now. And essentially that's running with really not a lot of backup. So the head of that department was reaching out to us about possibly getting a spare pump, getting 3 spare pumps, at least getting the conversation started on it, because we have 6 that pretty much run 24/7 that are always going. We have 2/3 backups right now in case they ever go out of service. But with these things running all the time, I mean, stuff can hit the van really quick and go from having 3 backups to not having any backups. So they were just kind of looking ahead to make sure that if we can get some more pumps in while they're on sale, he brought it up because they're currently on sale for a cheaper price. Let's see.
Discount of 20%. I forget exactly the dollar amount, but somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000 discount per pump.
Yeah, we're talking, let's see. The pumps are $21,111 plus freight, but the discount is $16,889 plus freight each. So a little over $4,000 per pump that we're saving, but it's also almost 17 grand per pump that we're spending. So it's not, as much as this is a good amount to save, if we don't have the money for it or can't find the money for it, that's 17,000 times 3 that we're paying that we kind of have to find the money for. So really, this is going to be something we all have to get together on and say, hey, do we have 17, whatever, 15, 30, 45 grand to spend on this stuff to look ahead for the future? Or do we want to take our chances, hope that these don't get more expensive in the future, or just kind of how we want to plan that out? So I don't need an answer tonight, but if we can start thinking about the budget for that. They don't have anything in their budget aligned for another almost 50 grand in spending. So we're going to have to kind of figure out if that's the right decision or not, because we're going to save a lot of money if we do this, and we're also going to spend a lot of money if we do it. So we just kind of have to think about that. I just want to get that out there.
May I interrupt? I just want to make sure you're all aware, we're talking large enough numbers that we've got procurement policy implications here. So just because they've decided that they're going to give us a $4,000 savings, I don't know, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, if
sole provider, somebody
else, if they are a sole provider, but if vendor B regularly does it for even $1,000 less than that, we're going to have to RFP it, just so you're aware.
Just to add to that, a couple of the budget lines I would be looking at that maybe we can fund it from would be a sewer maintenance equipment line or a building repairs line. And arguably, building repairs isn't perfectly applicable to that. But those lines where, we're around 5 months into the budget year now, well, 4.5, and we've spent the majority of the funds in those budgets already. So we're going to have to get a little creative if the decision is made to purchase these, work through any RFP process we may have to. And if we're dealing with sole source provider and we go to the purchase stage, where the revenues come from. So if there's no other questions on the other funds outside of the general fund, we can move on to new business. Okay, seeing none, hearing none. Oh, Councilman Thompson?
Yeah, I have a question about email chain that was started about looking to change hours for a clerk in sanitation. So this is related to moving or drop-offs for, recycling from highway department to the sanitation department. So this kind of continues the spider web into different questions. So with the e-waste moving from the highway to the sanitation department, where did that come from, and why did we move that over? Does anybody?
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to it. I know Councilman Pilarski and I were in those meetings together. That's why I looked over. But do you want to start?
We meet almost bi-weekly or have, now we've toned it down a little bit from the beginning of the year with highway. And one of the biggest issues was the e-cycling. Unfortunately, it's a state mandate, unfunded state mandate. So by law, the town has to collect it. How often, where, all that stuff, now that's up to the town. Unfortunately, the town, and I say unfortunately, it's a good service, but unfortunately the town was collecting it from everybody. So there was Buffalo residents, Cheektowaga residents, Lancaster residents, even West Seneca residents, all just dumping. And it cost the town to do that. In addition to with everything, all the moving pieces over on highway with, big apparatuses and big trucks moving around there, it became a safety hazard as well, just with residents coming by and dumping it even on their own. And then there was illegal dumping going on the weekends when even the front gate was locked, they were coming around the back end. So the best course of action, which we're going to try and take a swing at it, is changing things up and putting it over at sanitation, because it is a waste of, any way you look at it, it's electronic waste. So having it all under there, we had some other ideas which we brainstormed with is, do we do it solely in the garage to where it's restricted and it can't be dumped on the weekends with proper signage to say, hey, no dumping unless the garage is open. But we ran into hiccups there. Who's going to be there to open the garage? Who's going to man it? So this is just an attempt to see if it makes the service better for the residents. And we've also restricted a little more to where it's got to be Sloan, Depew side of transit, and Cheektowaga residents, all while showing ID. Buffalo's got a pretty good system in place where you drive in, show your ID, sign the paper, and they're allowed 3 pieces or so a year. And that's all tracked via the computer system that they use. But this is the first attempt on changing it up to see if it's a better service.
add to that, earlier in the year, and this goes to last year, when it has to do with scrap metal collection and with e-waste collection, we had those going through our highway department. And the goal was to get our consolidated garbage district, our sanitation department, doing all things that are sanitation related. We moved over scrap metal collection over because our town code talks about some of the white goods collection. It talks about aspects of scrap metal collection. It was a natural fit in practice and under the town code to be in sanitation. So then the question came to the e-waste side of things, and it made sense to have that, just like our recycling, our scrap collection, to all be involved in the same department there. And Brian got a lot to the safety and that aspect with the general public, but this is something that I asked for. So working along with Councilman Pilarski, we made directives to move that over to the sanitation department.
So, right, how long has it been like this? Because if they go to the sanitation department, they're still driving by that open space where they could drive into the highway department on the back end.
We advertised the switch to begin on April 20th.
So right now, they're dropping off in the front of the sanitation department?
They are dropping off in the rear. If you go into the town property between the gas pumps and the central garage, sanitation garage, you show residency there. After that, you would go back to the rear of the property, drop off your e-waste, and then get off the property following that.
So what are the hours now for whatever clerk this is?
The hours of the clerk is going, and we all know who the clerk is, but it's 7:30.
In there?
Yeah, 7:30 to 3 o'clock. One full-time.
There's a full-time and a part-time clerk. And this is the part-time clerk who's going to be doing this?
This would be the full-time clerk.
Full-time.
The ask is pertaining to the full-time.
They work from 7:30 to 3 now.
The hours currently, yes.
So why wouldn't it just be 7:30 to 3 if sanitation's gone by everybody? We've talked about it. Sanitation is here until.
The hours for the collection were over at Highway were, I think they were 7:30 to 1:30, I believe, maybe even 1 o'clock.
Correct, 1.
Yeah, it was 1 o'clock. So we moved those hours over to the sanitation department. And we've got a working crew chief there that's able to assist with the e-waste operation that's happening there. And the idea being that we keep.
So they're doing it also?
The working crew chief?
Yeah.
With certain aspects of the program, yes.
Is it like a tracking? I don't know. I'm not trying to be defensive. I just feel like there's a lot of, it's like Swiss cheese. There's a lot of holes to what this is. And if we're changing hours for positions that, I know we say, yeah, the union's okay with it, but I don't know. It raises a lot more questions than answers that I have.
Well, the goal, long and short, is to make sure we have the workforce necessary for, to monitor mainly as folks that are bringing this e-waste in. The town reserves the right to check resident IDs. We have been checking resident IDs to make sure we don't have folks coming from all over creation to give us 40, 50-year-old TVs and whatnot to drop them off. But that adds to the current workload that's in that department. And to my mind, it would make the most sense to have, whether it's the working crew chief or the clerk, the full-time clerk in that department, to be available when folks are bringing in the e-waste, because this is in addition to the existing workload to help absorb that work without adding more personnel to that department. I know we're dealing with personnel issues in all sorts of different departments in the town. And, I've mentioned in various emails that maybe we can deal with a part-timer. Maybe we can shift people around this and that. But I think we would all agree the starting point is, how do we do the same amount of work, or how do we get more work with the existing workforce? So the goal primarily is to make sure we deal with the growing workload that is concentrated between 7:30 and 1 o'clock with the existing workforce we have. So much like we've got hours in the highway department or the sewer department where clerks are leaving at 2 o'clock, or it made sense to propose a switch in those hours, so that way we have somebody available throughout the entire e-waste program, not just the working crew chief, but this clerk, to help absorb any peak we may have in the course of drop-offs.
If they're scheduled till 3, why can't you come drop it off at 2 o'clock on my lunch break? Or, I mean,
Are we advocating for expanding the e-waste hours to 3 o'clock?
well, if they're there until that time, why wouldn't we?
How does the rest of the board feel about that?
Scheduled until 3 o'clock, why, if the clerk is supposed to be there until 3 o'clock, why wouldn't somebody come be able to drop off a TV? Unless they're picking up all this e-waste. I mean, somebody drove it here, and I would imagine they can pick it up out of whatever vehicle they put it in to drop it off. Is it going in one large bin? I mean,
There are,
is that something we can do? Just expand it to the time that they're here until 3 o'clock?
we would have to talk, I would want to talk to the general crew chief at the sanitation department about how they would absorb those hours. You know, because I know when we made the move over there, the biggest concern they had is who's going to do this new work. You know, the highway department had this concern about e-waste when it got going at the beginning. They added staff to the highway department years ago when we started e-waste back in, I believe it was 2020.
Right, but if we have the staff there already, I mean, you have a clerk and a part-time. I mean, whenever I've been over there, the phone calls that come in are to the crew chief and working crew chief to, correct something, or they didn't pick up my garbage. I saw those were the two people mainly on the phones while I was there. So, and to take, what if I have, rentals in Cheektowaga, but I live in West Seneca and I can't come drop off my TVs here if I don't have an ID showing I live in Cheektowaga? Do I have to bring, a utility bill?
Wouldn't live in Cheektowaga if there were rentals. It wouldn't be homeowner occupied. You said if you had rentals, would you be able to drop off, right? Your renters would be able to drop off because they would have a utility bill or an ID showing that residence.
Okay, well, maybe they left, items behind. I'm just saying there's always some sort of angle to, if there's a chance it's gonna happen, it probably will happen. What if the renter left and they left a bunch of junk behind, and say instead of throwing it out in the garbage, they want to drop it off here, but they can't because we're requiring an ID to do so. That's my point.
One of the other ideas that came up relative to this e-waste program was curbside collection. Now, while it wouldn't deal with 100% of cases, we would still allow people to bring televisions or other e-waste to the highway garage. We have a metal truck that goes around already, and the idea proposed was to split that truck in half, have it collect the white goods and the metal, and the other side is collecting the e-waste. And that would reduce the pressure on the sanitation garage. And if we're talking about expanding the hours, then I think we have to more fully address the labor question. Because at some point, the clerk would need a break in the course of the day if we're going to do this until 3 o'clock. You know, in highway, we were running this program until 1 p.m. I mean, if we're expanding to 3 o'clock, I mean, why not explore the question of doing this on a weekend day? You know, I just think the best answer is to get.
Want to bring somebody in for overtime on a weekend?
I would agree 100% we shouldn't.
But if they're scheduled until that time,
yeah. I think the priority should be working out the curbside collection to make sure all of our residents have that as an availability. While that doesn't help the folks in the villages of Sloan and Depew, because we don't do curbside collection in the villages, that's going to help the vast majority of the folks in town that are in the consolidated garbage district with going curbside. They can call it in. For the remainders, we can have hours available for folks to drop that off Monday through Friday. I think that in combination with addressing hours, with talking about the duties of the working crew chief, working all those pieces out together, we're going to be able to fully absorb the shift of e-waste from highway to sanitation.
Not to consider, we also just have somebody who's been here for 20-something years, if not more, as working crew chief, who is leaving in a week and a half or so. So we're going to have somebody brand new in that position, right?
Well,
makes sense is maybe we come together and say, okay, this is what we should propose instead of just saying this is what we're gonna do. As a board, we should discuss this. If it's changing somebody's hours, I mean, this is a program that's county mandated, so we should do the thing that makes the most sense besides adding payroll to an overtime or sending somebody out to pick it up. I mean, what are other municipalities doing? I could find out. I can call West Seneca or Tonawanda and see what they're doing now.
Yeah, our working
I don't
crew-
have that answer now,
Yeah,
but
our
we
working
can.
crew chief has made those calls, and I know in the villages of Sloan and Depew, they have an annual e-waste collection, but they're folks that pay taxes to the town as well as the village, and the Depew residents west of Transit Road, those in the village of Sloan, they should be coming here if they feel they need that service to drop off any e-waste they have. I've got no issue with that, and that email there is about getting this conversation going, what
Right.
board members want to do. So, it's like a lot of these emails, I send them out and it's a one-way street, and, it's,
Answer somewhat of your question, Vern, what other municipalities, it's different straight across the board. Some will have drop-offs, hey, you come to our, sanitation department, drop it off. Some will do curbside pickups. Some will do a monthly event once a month or twice a year. There's no minimum requirements. It's just that you have to do it and have to accept them. You just can't collect them with your normal trash and throw them in landfills. So we could get away with saying, hey, we're doing, 2-3 collections a year at Apple Tree Business Park Mall or even here on campus. That would suffice it. In my opinion, we go above and beyond, having it longer hours, having a drop off, all that, or even entertaining, curbside pickup. But it's a service for our residents. And because we're paying such high taxes, the last thing we want to do, at least the last thing I want to do is cut those services or lessen them. So I'm not opposed to saying, hey, why not till 3 o'clock, extend it and because you got somebody there. But each municipality is totally different on how they do it.
else on this? Okay, any other new business? I sent an email out earlier today and just want to confirm everybody received it. This is pertaining to a proposed term limits local law. We had this is pertaining to a term limits local law. We had discussion as a town board late last year before a changing in the guard, so to speak, about the question of term limits. We took a version of a local law to public hearing, and it just went to public hearing, and that was it. Today, I sent a document that includes essentially 4 draft local laws, or 4 local laws on term limits. The first is a 1-page draft that is a mix of what was proposed last year and some of my proposed changes in red. And my proposed changes were inspired by the towns of Tonawanda and West Seneca, in addition to, as I said, the local law that was proposed late last year. So you'll see it's a 8-page document. Second page is intentionally blank. That first one is a draft of the language I'd like to take to public hearing. So all I wanted to mention tonight is that everybody should have that in their email. If you can't access it, please let me know. I'll get that forwarded over to you. I'll work with the law department to get that cleaned up. And at the next meeting, I'd like to make a call to public hearing for a term limits local law. I think we're talking about a 1-page document. We've had a hearing on a version of this already. We should be able to review this in enough time to get something in front of the public. And if we're able to have a public hearing on this on May 26th, we can, or call the public hearing on the 26th, we could have the public hearing on June 9th. And depending on feedback, as soon as June 9th, we would be able to approve a version of the term limits law. And that would give us more than enough time as a town to take it to public referendum in November of this year. I believe the deadline's August 3rd, 90 days before an election, for us to actually consider or actually get this to the Board of Elections in time for ballots to be printed and all that. So if we're able to make a decision in early June, that gives us more than enough time to reach out to other stakeholders and actually have a vote on this in November. So again, if you need me to forward that email again, send it over, please let me know. Anything else under new business?
I just had a question on that. This might be kind of a Fowler question. Is this a resolution where if we were to unanimously agree to it, does it still need to go to public referendum? Or if we have the, super majority of the board, would that be one of the resolutions that can, or laws, I guess, that should just go into effect?
No, this has to go to referendum.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else under new business? Okay, that's going to move us along to the consent agenda announcement. Sorry, Madam Clerk, the consent agenda announcement. Oh, wait a minute. I usually do that, don't I? I was doing so good. A consent agenda is contained in this meeting. The consent agenda is designed to assist in making the meeting shorter and more efficient. Items left on the consent agenda may not be discussed when the consent agenda comes before the town board. If any council member wishes to discuss consent agenda item, please tell me now and I will remove the item from the consent agenda and it will be added as a separate resolution item. I have 7 on the list this evening. After conferring with council members, the personnel director, I'm looking to pull 310 from the consent, 311, 296. So again, 296, 310, 311, 316, 320, 327, and 328. Do any other council members have resolutions they would wish to see pulled from the consent agenda? Any other resolutions from council members? I will read them. Yes, I have in total 296, 310, 311, 316, 320, 327, 328. Okay. Does that cover everything, Councilman? You all set? Okay, thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, I believe we're all set. Now it's your turn, okay. I don't need it.
Motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Eldekin, seconded by Councilmember Bukowski. All in favor?
Aye.
We have some items that were left on the table. Is there a motion and a second to move resolution items 2026, 236, 265, 273, and 292 to the table for consideration? Any or all items?
I would like to make a motion to move resolutions 265 and 273 from the table for consideration. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nowicki. All in favor?
Aye.
Starting with Resolution 2026-265 is sponsored by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Councilmember Nowicki. Chapter 198 of the Code of the Town of Cheektowaga entitled Sewers provides for the maximum possible public use of the town's publicly owned treatment works through regulation. The Cheektowaga Town Board believes there is a need to amend Chapter 198-27 connection inspection. It is in the public's interest to adopt the proposed amendment. Local law number 4 of the year 2026 shall take effect upon filing with the Secretary of State.
question. I'd like to call the question with a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on Resolution 265. Councilmember Bukowski. Councilmember Elderkin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis.
Yes.
Councilmember Nowicki.
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski.
No.
Councilmember Thompson.
No.
Supervisor Noack.
I'm a yes.
Councilmember Bukowski.
No.
Resolution is carried with 4 yeses. We have Resolution 2026-273, sponsored by Councilmember Nowicki, seconded by Councilmember Lewis. Whereas the Village of Sloan is located within the corporate limits of the Town of Cheektowaga, the Village of Sloan requested that the Town of Cheektowaga Highway Department assist them with the repaving of certain streets within the village. Town of Cheektowaga Superintendent of Highways is willing to assist the Village of Sloan as requested. Supervisor being hereby is authorized and directed to execute municipal cooperation agreement with the Village of Sloan on this matter.
Right, on the question, I know we had conversation about this item the last meeting that resulted in it being tabled. I've been able to speak with the town attorney. I know he's been in contact with the attorneys from Sloan on this. And there is a desire to work out some of the indemnification language and some of the other details. We have an opportunity as a board to approve the item. It would go through the law department as the resolution notice is noticing in the resolve where it says subject to review and approval by the town attorney. And I just wanted to make mention of that. So in the event this is approved tonight, it will go through the law department and the final language might be tweaked just a little bit to address some of the concerns raised 2 weeks ago. Any other comments from council members?
Councilmember Lewis, I know you talked with our highway superintendent. I'm not speaking for you, but I remember we talked about how you spoke with Rosiniak about this and how he was going to set the town as a priority on his paving. Just can you, I can't speak for you because you talked to him, but can you just remind me on what you said about that?
Yeah, sure. So after speaking with the highway superintendent, he assured us that everything will be in proper order and that things will be precedented with our anything that we need to do, first, and then anything needs to carry over to Sloan. So he did assure us that we will make sure that we're taken care of first before anything.
Priorities, wherever. Okay.
Fowler, it's all good on your end. Hypothetically, if we were to pass this tonight and you to change this as needed to make it as you see fit, is that all good on your end?
It will be. The village attorney agrees that this is some pretty antiquated language. I think this agreement's been around for more than 20 years with basically just changing dates. And so we're going to work on some of the indemnification language. And my understanding, their opinion in Sloan is they do pay town taxes, and they don't ask very much for the reciprocity. And it's different on paper than it is in reality. I just want to make sure that we're buttoned up on paper so that if there's an injury or some damage to our equipment, that we're covered, that the village is covered if we do it wrong. And that's not how it reads right now.
Got it.
Any other comments from council members?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this. I just want to make mention, I have the same concerns as before, where asking the highway superintendent last year and the year before for the worst roads in the town, and let's prioritize paving those, where you have somebody that has this issue. Just tonight, she spoke on her orphan road that's just been sitting stagnant, but maybe he just doesn't drive down Beach Road. I don't know. So for me to have faith in him executing all the lists and prioritize our town, we're never going to know if it doesn't happen, or if we do find out, it's going to be closer to September towards the end when they say, oh, my road was on this list and it never happened. So I'm in support of trying to do a good faith, because like the town attorney mentioned, they don't ask for much, the Village of Sloan. We should be there to help and assist them, but I just don't have a lot of faith in sometimes the person executing that, but I'm willing to give it a shot.
And I'd like to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Resolution 273. On to the consent agenda. I need a motion and a second to approve all items on the consent agenda, including the meeting minutes of April 28th, 2026, in and including resolution items 2026-293 through 332. We will recognize that items 296, 310, 311, 316, 320, 327, and 328 have been removed and will be taken as separate resolution items. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Lewis. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a roll call vote to approve the other items on the consent agenda. Councilmember Bukowski?
Yes.
Member Elderkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Nowicki?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski? Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Noack? Items on the consent agenda are approved. We will move on to the separate resolution items. Resolution 2026-296, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Nowicki. The Town of Cheektowaga on May 13th, 2025 adopted Article 10 opt-out exemption for certain energy systems. That included Chapter 220-42, 43, and 44, the taxation law of the Town of Cheektowaga by way of Local Law 2 of 2025. It is in the public interest to repeal the aforesaid article. Town Board has voted in the affirmative to take action to repeal the local law. Article 10, opt-out exemption for certain energy systems being and hereby is repealed in its entirety.
Question, as a sponsor, this is an item we've talked about at several meetings. We've had a public hearing on. We've had some spirited discussion on it. I would like to call the question with a roll call vote.
I'll vote on Resolution 296. Councilmember Bukowski?
No.
Councilmember Elderkin?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes.
Councilmember Nowicki?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski? Councilmember Thompson?
No.
Supervisor Noack?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Move on to Resolution 2026-310, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Nowicki. Legislation sponsored by Senator Michelle Hinchy. Senate Bill 1850 and Assemblymember Anna Kelly's. Assembly Bill 6012 calls for the establishment of a Safe Water Infrastructure Action Program. The proposed Safe Water and Infrastructure Action Program would apply to any county, town, village, or public authority drinking water system, stormwater system, or sanitary sewer system within the state that is not under the maintenance and/or operational jurisdiction of a private entity. Town of Cheektowaga Council urges the New York State Legislature to approve Senate Bill 1850, Assembly Bill 1612, the Safe Water and Infrastructure Action Program legislation, and work to have it passed into law.
On the question, the resolution notes that this particular legislation is much like think about the CHIPS program for roads. Think about that for sewers. That's essentially what's being proposed here. The idea would be an annual fund, let's say something as small as $50,000 to $75,000, maybe in excess of $100,000, that can come to a municipality like the Town of Cheektowaga to help improve our storm and sanitary sewers. That's money that can help with significant issues on the sanitary side. On the storm side, it may help us with some receivers or some other minor storm-related issues to help with the ongoing maintenance of aging sewer infrastructure. And the legislation here on the Assembly and the Senate side has bipartisan support. So even though the sponsors are members of the majority party, there are folks in the minority like Senator George Borrello and folks in the Assembly in the minority that are sponsor of the respective bills in the lower house and in the upper house. And it's just one of those common sense measures where they can help towns and cities throughout New York just to make those, just moving the needle little by little to make sure that there's sewer infrastructure both on the storm and the sanitary side. And for municipalities that have drinking water, this program would assist them on the drinking water side. Obviously, we don't have a water We don't do drinking water here in the town of Cheektowaga. If you guys want to get into the drinking water business, please let me know. We can, put out the bonds and start doing that. But that's essentially all this is. So any questions, comments from council members? Okay.
I think it's just good policy. If you go and look at the state Senate legislation, it's basically split 50-50 on the co-sponsors of Republican and Democrat. So I really think this is just something where it's good for everyone involved, repairing our infrastructure.
Is this still being considered or is?
It's actively, it was introduced and it's currently in the committee in Senate. So it's early in the process, but at least as far as right now, it seems like people have some interest in it. This is just supporting that further.
Not to throw stones, but we still don't have a state budget. I did reach out to Assemblymember Kell's office on this. It was not included. This legislation was not included in the one house budget for the New York State Assembly. And my understanding is it's not in the Senate one house budget either. So I don't expect it to be part of state law this year. But it's just an opportunity for the town to go on record to say that from Western New York all the way to New York City and all over the place that there is support for such a program. And it's not just one side of the aisle or the other. There's, this is one of those common sense measures, but I don't expect it to be included in this year's budget. All right. Any other comments? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries.
Resolution 310 is carried. Resolution 2026-311, sponsored by council members Elderkin, Lewis, Nowicki, Halarski, and Supervisor Nowak. On March 13th, 2018, the town of Cheektowaga unanimously approved Resolution 2018-144. Every person in New York State should have access to affordable quality health care, and access to affordable health care coverage continues to erode due to misguided federal legislation. New York Health Act establishes the New York Health Program, a comprehensive system of access to health insurance for all New York State residents, and provides universal healthcare coverage with no limitations to selection of healthcare providers. Town has continued to experience unrelenting increases in health insurance costs. The projected 12.9% increase of health insurance premiums in 2026 over 2025 being a recent example. Implementation of the New York Health Act is estimated to save billions of dollars for New Yorkers by eliminating current administrative costs and by providing lower cost healthcare coverage for 98% of residents. New York Health Act has passed the New York State Assembly 3 times in 2015, 16, and 17, and has not passed the New York State Senate. This town council of the town of Cheektowaga supports the passage of New York Health Act and calls on the legislature of the state of New York to fully consider this legislation. Senate Bill 3425 and Assembly Bill 1466, which can assure affordable and effective health care for all residents of the town of Cheektowaga and New York State.
On the question, this item's up for consideration tonight because it's not just in 2026, but ongoing discussions in this country for a very long time now about how to make sure that healthcare is provided to people and how you do it, what mechanisms, who pays for it, how much it costs. All these have been questions for decades now. And here in the town of Cheektowaga last year, we paid well over $14 million for healthcare related costs to our employees. Now we have contracts with our 5 bargaining units. We insure hundreds of people and their dependents and their families. And those are the agreements we've made with our town employees. And the idea behind the New York Health Act now, as it was back in 2018 when the town board unanimously approved a very similar resolution, is to essentially guarantee coverage to every New Yorker for basic health insurance, and to do that through a New York Health Trust Fund. Now, the revenues would come from state income taxes, Medicare money, Medicaid money from the federal level, other revenue sources put together into a trust. They would guarantee the minimums provided under the law for Medicare, under Medicaid, and to make sure that there's basic coverage for every other New Yorker. And The estimates from what's called the Campaign to New York Health, a group of folks that are advocating for this legislation, they suggest the town of Cheektowaga can save as much as $13 million a year off of its balance sheet if this law were implemented. Now, of course, those costs would be shifted over to the state level, and it would basically be levied by folks' ability to pay. The higher your income, the more that you would pay for health insurance. Right now, at the county level, a large share of healthcare costs, the large share of the county's cost, I'm sorry, are healthcare related for Medicaid. That's one of the biggest budget lines. And that would come off of the county budget and the county property tax and will go to the state. The same at the town level is much of these costs. I don't think it's going to be $13 million, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Those costs would come off of the town's budget sheet and end up on the state budget sheet. Estimates through a RAND Corporation study would show over a 10-year period that, and the RAND Corporation is hardly a leftist institution, it would show that the state of New York can save $80 billion over 10 years in healthcare costs by going to this type of program. Now, the reason I don't think we're going to save as much as $13 million is it's my belief that the cost estimates for the town's savings that were recently released don't include our union contracts. The way this program would work is essentially an 80-20 proposition, that the state would cover 80% of the cost and the other 20% would have to be covered by employers. Now, we have contracts with well over 400 workers between our 5 bargaining units. Some of those employees have to pay up to 20% for their health insurance. Some of them are paying as low as 5%, maybe even less than that if they're a retiree, depending on their obligations. The town would have an obligation to make those folks whole through the contracts that we have with them. There's no position to where we can simply say, oh, because of this law, now we're not going to pay a portion of your health insurance cost. If we have an agreement with an employee, for instance, that says they pay 10% of their health cost and the rest is covered through the employer, much of that would be covered through this new law, but that difference between what New York Health Act pays for and what we've agreed the employer or the employee has to pay for, let's say they only do 10, the state does 80, that gap would have to be covered by the town. We have to honor our union contracts. So I don't think we would save as much as $13 million off our balance sheet. I do think we would save well in excess of the $4 million that was cited back in 2018. It's a very conservative number that I think the town would save off of its budget sheet. But if this law were to go into effect, you would see a 1-year decrease in the town's tax levy and in property taxes because of how significant the cost burden would be decreased on the town's property taxpayers. Yes, we would see this show up on the state income tax side, but as the resolution notes and as the legislation is noted, well over 90% of New Yorkers are going to see more money in their pocket, more take-home pay. That's essentially the concept. This is something that's been around for a long while. And considering the last time this was taken up in 2018, there's been discussions at the state level for years about this idea now. I just wanted to file something tonight for the town board to consider once again. So any of the other sponsors wish to speak? Councilman Pilarski?
So just to clarify and be clear on it, what you're just saying is the percentage based off of, so employees range from 5% to 20% depending on the bargaining contract unit. Our requirement would be the percentage based off the town share, not the overall cost of the package. Am I correct on that? Because if the state's paying 80% and the town's left with the 20% to pay,
right,
the employees would pay based off that 20%, not the 100%.
So suppose an employee that is, we're going to use somebody that's full-time, that is management confidential, that's not in the union, and there's no agreement on what the town's healthcare cost would be. Let's say they were totally on their own, just for the sake of argument. This law would cover 80 cents on the dollar. So if their healthcare premium were $10,000, the state would cover 8, that employee would have to cover the other $2,000. Following so far? Make sense? So to what I'm hearing is that your question is, has to do with the employees and the union contracts, right? That the town is making them whole the rest of the way. Any agreement we have with employees in the 5 bargaining units, we're making them whole on the terms of the contract. The way this state law is written, we can't ignore the union contract. If we have said somebody's 10% or 5% and the town covers the rest, we got to make up that gap, as I said. The state covers the first 80 cents, we cover the next 10, 5 cents, 15 cents, employee covers the rest. So in terms of the cost share, this state legislation wouldn't change that. This state legislation wouldn't undo the healthcare aspects of our union employees' contracts.
I just think this is a great policy overall. To a certain extent, every one of us who's out there working a job is subsidizing a certain section of the population already, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, those who have fought in the armed services, those who have disabilities that stop them from being able to be in the workforce. We're already subsidizing that. It's just the people who are able to work on their own and not be sucked into the healthcare system out of no fault of their own have to pick up the slack for that. I know for me personally in my union, the way it works for us is essentially the whole premium is put on us and our benefits take care of it. A single individual for healthcare that's better than what's on most of the open market is about $750 a month for an individual, around $1,400-1,500 a month for 2-person, and $2,400 a month for family coverage. And that, seeing that drop down to, $400-500 a month would be a lot better for everyone in this country. There's a lot of I call it propaganda. It is propaganda. A lot of propaganda out there from media conglomerates that try to scare people into saying the coverage we're going to get is going to take so much longer and it's going to be so much worse. But when you look at the rest of the developed world, when you see longer life expectancies and on an individual basis, cheaper costs per person as far as what they pay in healthcare, I don't really see how you can go wrong. What we are calling the greatest country on earth, why every other country can manage to have a longer life expectancy and lower healthcare costs, but we can't seem to get it together enough to make that happen here. Well, you have to come to the decision. Are we not the best country on earth, or are we owned by some people who are willingly making it so we don't have that healthcare? A lot of the extended wait times that we see for other countries, if you look into the funding behind a lot of that, it's coming from the corporate elites who own our media and, try to avoid that going into effect here because they'd be the ones who have to pay for it. So, when the buck has to stop with somebody and it's the people who have all the money and have all the power, of course they're going to try to avoid making that happen. Now, with that said, has anyone in this room not dealt with the American healthcare system? I wouldn't exactly call it speedy the way it is now. I mean, go to an emergency room. I pray to God you don't actually have an emergency because Lord only knows how long it's going to take until you actually get in. We can do much better than what we have now. And I don't know if this is the perfect option, but it's a hell of a lot better than what we have.
Any other sponsors wish to speak on the item? Any other council members wish to speak on the item? Okay.
First of all, I'm a little surprised that this is being brought up since it was originally looked at and addressed back in 2018 by the town board. And then I'm also surprised where there was never no kind of communication to even address this again with all of us and get our input. I'm not at all in favor of this because it's, again, a one government-run insurance plan. And all you have to do is talk to any Canadian, ask them how that health system up there is. I have friends that are waiting and waiting and waiting for tests to be done, treatment. How is this any better? It's just not. I'm not at all in favor of it. And actually, I think it should be tabled, and I think there should be a little bit more homework done on this.
Council members?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on this. So since this is not town related, we can't control whether this happens or not. We look at the state. And on that note, just last year, the governor of the state is telling all the high-end earners and businesses to pack up and leave. If you don't like it, get out of New York. Now, fast forward to today, this year, when she's begging people to come back to pay for programs such as this. And it's on record. I know everybody up here has seen it, both clips. So with people leaving in droves, businesses leaving in droves out of this state, we think it's a good idea to say, you know what, let's offer everybody free health care because it's going to be free. Nobody's paying for it, right? Or wait, who's paying for it? It's got to come from somewhere. Do you think your primary doctor is going to say, yeah, that's on me today, Vern. Don't worry about it. It's free. I mean, there's got to be some logic somewhere in this. I mean, it's mind-blowing to me that there doesn't appear to be any. So if we're all going to be in the same pool for New Yorkers having the same health care, does this also include the people who are here illegally, who we're paying for in our hotels that we're not getting revenue from also? So there's a lot of facets that go into this. When costs of goods go up, do you think they're not going to charge you more? So of course, they're going to say, yeah, we'll pay for it, but we're just going to charge businesses more, small businesses in the town more. They're going to, charge people who are working 2 or 3 jobs. Your income taxes are going to be more. Your payroll taxes are going to be more. So for anybody who thinks this is free, I mean, I don't have many words for that. And we're relying on the government for this, for our health care. What about if there's a government shutdown? Who's funding it? Oh, you see, TSA workers don't get paid when there's a government shutdown. Does that say, oh, hospital doors are closed, can't call your doctor? Has anybody had discussions like this?
Right.
I mean, I could sit here all night and go, I mean, that's seems like a no-brainer.
Like I said, Councilman, we gave you a lot to work with.
Give me a bit, yeah.
Ideologically, I think this is one of those areas where we talked on that last resolution with the sewers, and everyone's like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense if we can get the state to pony up a few $1,000s. This is one where we can, like you said, we can go till midnight on this. And for me, if we're talking about the question of free healthcare, there's absolutely no free lunch. If we're talking about something like this, it begs the question of, do you have enough doctors? Do you have enough hospitals? Do you have enough nurses? Do you have the medical supplies? Do you have the productive capacity, basically, to provide healthcare to each and every person in the state of New York? When they're talking about this idea of Medicare for all at the federal level, the proposals usually talk about a phase-in, and you need to do that, like lowering the age. If you were to do something like this, healthcare for all, lowering the age little by little to bring more people into the pool, because you need time to train the nurses and train the doctors, and to make sure you have all those supplies that you need to provide the care. We look at the dollars we spend. Warren Buffett, hardly a single-payer healthcare champion. He's called healthcare the tapeworm on the American economy. You compare our share of GDP to places like Germany or Singapore or even Canada, we spend so much more on health insurance than we do these other places. The idea in the spirit of this legislation is to say, instead of having this balkanized where some of your county property taxes pay for healthcare, some of your town taxes pay for healthcare, maybe there's healthcare costs built into the NFTA or the Erie County Water Authority or state authorities, and you have people that pay for everybody else's healthcare costs through all these different government agencies when they pay their taxes, and nearly 1 million people in the state don't even have it themselves. The idea is to throw all that money into a trust fund to say, if you're entitled to Medicare, which is basically socialized health care for 65 and older, we're going to get you covered. If you're entitled to care through the VA, we will make sure you're covered. If you're entitled to Medicaid, as the state law is written and as federal law requires, you're covered there. Health insurance for younger people, the guarantees that are under state and federal laws, you're also covered there. The idea is to make sure that those folks that don't have it are also covered. You look into the way ambulance companies and hospitals bill, the way their financial models work, they have to assume some of the people that come through their doors will not pay because they don't have health insurance or they don't have money in their pockets. This legislation would help address that issue. And the RAND study that I mentioned in my first round of comments is talking about cost savings of $1 billion a year with improving healthcare outcomes. So I agree with you, it's not free. And for anybody to think that we can run a large-scale program, whether it's not-for-profit, whether it's public sector, or whether it's a for-profit business, you need to have a revenue side of the model. And that has been worked out through this proposed legislation that traces its genesis back to the early 1990s. So we're looking at something that we can cover the cost and we can have a financial model that does provide basic health care to every person. I would say if I have any major concerns, it's do you have enough nurses? Do you have the staffing at the hospitals if you're going to cover every single person? And some of the upfront costs that would come from this, you're providing more annual checkups, more preventative care. Down the road, you're going to lower your healthcare costs. You have a lot of people that will be underinsured or uninsured in this state that once they turn 65, they run for the doors. They're like, I'm on Medicare now. And then they start getting checked up. And you have some people that'll get to 64, 65, 67. They didn't get their colorectal treatments. They didn't get their basic cancer screenings. And that's part of the reason that's taken our life expectancy down in certain areas of the country. Part of the reason our life expectancy is relatively higher in New York is because we're more generous with Medicaid programs, because we have more employer coverage historically through the unions. As you said, Councilman, we can go on all night, but I agree with you, it's not free, and I do think it's an issue for the town. If we paid $14,776,825.48 last year for healthcare coverage. Now the question, how do you address those costs? You know, we've looked into other options as alternatives to provide healthcare to our people, and you know, it was a good faith effort last year, but we realized that that wasn't going to result in savings, a potential change there. This is a savings that could take a lot of money off of our balance sheet and also improve health outcomes at the same time, and also improve the use of healthcare dollars throughout the state, saving on average $8 million a year.
Passing the buck, though, essentially.
I would say we're improving health outcomes and reducing expenditures at the same time.
Shifting it. And there's also countless jobs people are going to lose that are working in the private sector.
Sure, like the executives that are making millions of dollars and the regional directors that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars that will lose their job to no longer, you know, to actually be a productive member of society.
Good point. So we're probably going to have to create a department that will hire a ton of people and actually costs even more money, right?
Well,
who's going to manage this?
Public sector jobs traditionally are much more paid in line with reason. You don't see the director of the FBI getting paid, you know, with a second comma in there. You don't see any of the leaders in really any sector of government making over $1 million. Really, the only places you see that are at colleges with a large football team that are on the public dime. But aside from that, we'd had people working in those positions, but getting paid a reasonable amount instead of an excessive amount. I mean, when you're at a point in the country where there's healthcare executives that are gunned down in the street because of how people view their job, that is not a good state of the world to be in. And ideally, not having somebody who hoards wealth to that level and is seen so negatively by the public, it'll at least save one life going forward.
What about the hundreds of people that work underneath them that have families that aren't hoarding money? Because I'm sure there's not just one CEO of a company unless it's a Leering Center.
I'm sure many of them will have.
Sorry.
But
yeah.
to the councilman's point about the employees in healthcare. That you have, part of the savings reported from the proponents of the bill is that it comes from reducing administrative cost. Administrative costs are redundant and balkanized, and it's a waste of resources. I mean, call me crazy, but every time I see somebody that's doing the billing, it's an important job. Every job we create in our economy is an important job. It sustains an individual, it sustains a family. It's like that payroll can go to a nursing assistant, it can go to a doctor, it can go to a dentist, it can go to an optometrist, rather than somebody doing paperwork. And this is something that's been thought about of proponents of the bill, is that you're going to need an admin factor. And you're going to lose jobs on that side because you're not going to need as many people to do the paperwork, medical billing side of it to see, do you get covered? Who gets to tell you, no, you don't get this treatment? Who gets to tell you, no, you don't get this, you don't get that? The bill calls for retraining, and their estimate is you're going to have a net reduction of employment in the healthcare space by approximately 1%. And in order to get that $8 billion of savings, you're going to have to reduce payroll in some areas somehow. I mean, we see it here in the town. We see it businesses huge and tiny and everyone in between, that payroll is an overwhelming share of their expenses. And when you get to the question about creating jobs in a place like New York, if we're able to accomplish something like this, there's a lot of small businesses that are made and broken rather, on providing benefits to be competitive. Large companies like the Walmarts and the Home Depots and some of these other larger companies, they're able to offer healthcare as part of a benefits package to their people. The smaller businesses aren't exactly able to do that. It makes it more difficult for them to compete. So arguably in that respect, this would help level the playing field. And you find a conglomerate of strange bedfellows that support this and oppose this. That there are folks in organized labor that are on both sides of the bill. There are small businesses on both sides of the bill. There are CEOs that are on both sides of the bill. There are folks in the healthcare space that are on both sides of this. And obviously, there's 7 of us up here. We have different ways of looking at the world. It's expected there would be folks in support and in opposition to something like this. But the position the outlook on this gets nuanced because you have a relatively small employer that says, oh, this is going to fix my healthcare costs and I don't have to worry about a 13% increase year over year. I don't have to worry about competing against large employers for healthcare. Some of those smaller employers see that as a net benefit for them. But you're also going to have some small employers that say, I don't provide healthcare at all. What does this mean for me? And
Payroll taxes.
And to mention overall that when you have savings for over 90% of New Yorkers with a change like this, that you save billions of dollars in GDP that goes to providing healthcare, you improve health outcomes, you improve coverage, and you reduce cost. In a lot of those ways, this addresses the tapeworm on the economy, as Warren Buffett described it, which is the healthcare system. So,
Remember, we're not voting on the act, we're voting in support of the act.
I get it.
Oh, yeah, I don't support it at all. Yeah.
All right.
I had made
Not
a
as it
motion to table.
stands.
Okay, yeah, so,
Second it.
okay, well, Madam Clerk, there's a motion and a second to table the item.
Motion by Councilmember Bukowski to table, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. Resolution 2026-316, sponsored by Councilmember Elderkin, seconded by Councilmember Lewis, in order to provide for the provisions of emergency medical services on a uniform basis. Town Board on May 7th, 1984 adopted an ambulance service ordinance. The following individuals will be and hereby are appointed to the EMS Board for the Town of Cheektowaga for a 1-year appointment effective immediately with their term to expire on December 31st, 2026.
Going to be a little more consensus on this one. So this item is just to amend appointments to the EMS Board. The resolution is written, would need one amendment. I'd like to offer an amendment to change the name for the ex officio member from AMR. We would move it from Eric Conley to Andrew Knoll. And the last name would be spelled Knoell. Andrew Knoll. So I'm offering an amendment to switch those names. Is there a second from a council member?
I second.
Second from Councilmember Elderkin. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment carries.
Resolution 316, we are voting on the amended resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is carried as amended. Resolution 2026-320 is sponsored by Councilmember Nowicki, seconded by Councilmember Lewis. Mark J. Crystal of Chickawaga, New York, being and hereby is appointed to the provisional position of civil engineer in the Highway Department in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Chickawaga Supervisory Unit effective May 13th, 2026.
On the item, there's a little bit of work that needs to be done here. I'd like to have the resolution pulled, and I was asked the sponsors if they would be willing to support pulling the item. That would be Councilmember Nowicki and Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, I would.
Appreciate that.
Money has been pulled by the sponsors. Resolution 2026-327, sponsored by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Councilmember Bukowski. Aaron Hosberger being hereby is appointed to the temporary position of Motor Equipment Operator B in the Sanitation Department, and Kenneth J. Chase Jr. being and hereby is appointed to a temporary position of labor in the Sanitation Department in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Chickawaga Employees Association, effective retroactively as of January 26, 2026.
A question, after my looking into the item and advice of council, I'd like to pull this resolution, and I'd like to ask Councilmember Bukowski to join me in that effort. Thank you, Councilmember.
Resolution is pulled by the sponsors. Resolution 2026-328, sponsored by Councilmember Bukowski, seconded by motion by Councilmember Bukowski, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. Aaron Hochberger being hereby is transferred from the temporary position of Motor Equipment Operator B in the Sanitation Department to his former permanent position of labor in the Sanitation Department, and Kenneth J. Chase Jr. being hereby is transferred from the temporary position of labor in the Sanitation Department to his permanent position of labor in the Facilities Department, effective May 13th, 2026.
Okay, on the question, like the prior resolution, after some investigation and advice of council, I'd like to ask the sponsor and the second to kindly pull the item.
Good with pulling it.
Resolution 328 has been pulled. That's the end of our resolution items from the consent agenda. We're moving on to late filings. I need a motion and a second to waive the rules to include resolution items 333 through 338 to the motion.
Motion.
I'll second.
Member Pilarski and Councilmember Bukowski, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Looking at resolution 2026-333, sponsored by Councilmember Lewis, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. The town board hereby approves the aforementioned application of Mark Landon on behalf of Cirque Entertainment 4 LLC for said temporary circus to be held at the Walden Galleria Mall parking lot from Friday, May 22nd through Monday, May 25th, 2026.
Right, on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2026-334, sponsored by Councilmember Bukowski, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. Early voting will be for the primary election is June 13th, 2026 till June 21st, 2026. Early voting for the general election, October 24th, 2026 to November 1st, 2026. The county is requesting use of 3349 Broadway Street, which is the senior center. The supervisor being hereby is authorized and directed to execute the lease agreement with the Board of Elections for the County of Erie as tenant for use of the above referenced town building, subject to review and approval of the town attorney.
Right, on the question, on this item and the next item, I had questions regarding the revenues the town received from Erie County and how those were determined. I was able to speak with a couple folks on both sides of the aisle that had Board of Elections experience or are currently there. And they made note that depending on the facility and whether it's a public or private institution, that the dollar amounts are determined by Erie County, by the Erie County Legislature, and they're applied systematically throughout every town in the county. So the revenues we'd be getting are determined, we would be getting, are determined by an act of the legislature, and they're the same whether our senior center is in the town of Cheektowaga or a senior center anywhere else. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Resolution 334 is carried. Resolution 2026-335, sponsored by Councilmember Bukowski, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. Primary election day is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. General election is Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026. The Erie County would like to use the senior center at 3349 Broadway for the use of the building. Supervisor being hereby is authorized and directed to execute the lease agreement with the Board of Elections for the county as tenant for the use of the above referenced building, subject to review and approval of the town attorney.
All right, on the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries.
Resolution 2026-336, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Bukowski. The Human Resources Personnel Department was notified on April 23rd, 2026 by Lynn Dearmeyer that Scott Coel requested that movement of employees was necessary and a resolution effectuating same was requested. The Human Resource Personnel Department had no notice that the relevant employees had been previously moved without formal notice to the Human Resource Personnel Department. Resolution by the town board or notification to the Erie County Department of Personnel. Effective immediately, the following employees are replaced to the following positions. Aaron T. Hochberger from temporary motor equipment B to laborer in the sanitation department. Kenneth J. Chase Jr. from temporary labor in the sanitation department to laborer in the facilities department.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2026-337, sponsored by Council Members Bukowski, Nowicki, and Lewis. Catherine Gassman of Cheektowaga, New York, be and hereby is appointed to the part-time clerk in the council office at an hourly rate of $20 an hour, starting May 18th, 2026.
Question, I'd just like to note that for budget purposes, this is something I can work on with Brian Kraus. We're gonna have to get money out of the council office budget line and support the personnel department because of the change we made earlier in the year. So just wanna make sure the board is aware of that. That's all I had. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2026-338, sponsored by Council Members Nowicki and Thompson, and sponsored by Supervisor Noack. Catherine Steinlen of Cheektowaga, New York, being and hereby is reappointed to the position of alternate member of the Cheektowaga Board of Assessment Review, effective immediately and terminating on September 30th, 2026.
Question? On this one, I just want to note that it's my understanding we're going to be operating a 3-member Board of Assessment Review, and this resolution is up tonight to make sure we have a minimum number of members. Any other council members? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Our resolution items for tonight. Departmental communications received by the clerk's office include the minutes of the Traffic Safety Commission of April 21st and minutes from the Environmental Advisory Committee of April 29th. General communications include 4 notices of claim.
Okay. With that, that moves us on to public comment. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. Our first speaker on public comment is Rachel Martinez.
Hello. So first of all, I just wanted to speak to the New York Health Act. I find it frustrating that healthcare continues to be looked at as something that's a luxury for people that have the money to afford the astronomical cost of it at this time. Healthcare is not a luxury, that's a right that anyone should have for living in this country. So I understand that nothing comes for free, but I do think it's our responsibility to make sure that anybody living in this country is able to receive healthcare if they need it. That doesn't seem like something that should be negotiable to me. Also wanted to speak to the flock cameras. It's extremely frustrating that we've been asking about the flock cameras. We specifically asked, when are these renewing? How much are we paying? We never got answers to those questions, and now this is auto-renewed. So something that is controversial and expensive should be something that we're looking at and not just allowing to continue on our budget line just because it's there. Also wanted to check in. We had talked about policy 414 way back when we were talking about the ICE resolution. Is there any movement on looking at that, revising the wording around that, making that something that's actually useful to our police force? And with that, we had also talked about the Police Oversight Board. I brought that up in the in multiple meetings. So I know in the middle of April, it sounded like Supervisor Nowak and Councilmember Thompson, you had said you were going to speak to each other about that. I had gotten a response at some point that that conversation hadn't happened. I'm hoping that it will or has. So there's some movement towards that. That policy, in addition to many others, really needs to be looked at. And the last thing is I hope that we get back around to talking about good cause eviction, because I think that is a common sense thing we should have as well. People shouldn't be kicked out of their houses. Healthcare and housing are not luxuries. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Linda Benner.
First time I called Bill twice, so.
I got your last name correct, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Mainly, I wanted to remind Vern of what we were talking about at training. I have a huge memory. So I know you talked about safety training, but I also know that we were talking about last year having the highway department come up with a matrix of the training that needed to be done with their employees so that we didn't have to hire so many outsourced different companies. And I know you can't answer me because it's not a talking thing, but so I was wondering, is that done or not? And do all your departments, individual departments, have training matrix for all their employees? Just a question. So.
Yeah, that is something that we'll be looking into at a safety meeting, which is next week. I'll be going to that with Councilmember Bukowski and hopefully getting some answers.
Yeah, I know it wasn't just safety. I mean, it was like employees to learn to do certain things so that we didn't have to hire so many outside sources.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Jess Greenwald.
All right. I forgot to mention this earlier, but last weekend at the mall, the Cheektowaga Police and the Yes program were at the Old Navy, and we stopped by, and it was really lovely, and everybody was really nice. And I just wanted to, I know I come up here and I give them shit about the policy writers and the flock and everything like that, which I still stand by. I think we all deserve a better policy. But I just wanted to say thank you, and that was really cool, and they did a good job, and I'm a fan of giving people credit where it's due. Vern and Barb, I have questions for you, starting with, we all get the meeting packet the Wednesday before. We all get it at the same time. I don't understand why multiple times now in meetings, there's been comments of, I don't understand why this wasn't brought to me. The meeting was available to you and the
specific example
today with the New York Health Act, and Barb was saying how she's going to table it because it wasn't brought to her. It's not the Democrats' job to bring you a resolution for your thoughts. Like if there's something about it you want to talk to them about, why don't you reach out to them? I don't understand.
Well, is that not what we're discussing here tonight?
But why
Or
would you
should
not do
all
that
business
before?
be
Why would
conducted
you?
behind scenes and
Well, you
nobody?
had people from your own party who were here saying how you guys waste time and you spent 6 months to make a decision.
I don't
And
even
then
know
we
who
have
that
to,
person was, but
it doesn't
okay.
matter. It's one of your constituents. So why are
From my
you,
party, you said.
Verdon, do you think you're acting like a council person right now? I'm a regular constituent.
Yeah,
I'm
and I'm having a conversation back with you.
You're
You want to hold me
arguing with me
accountable?
before I can
I'll
even
answer your
finish a
questions.
sentence. Could you be
Please
a
finish.
gentleman?
Please finish. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Thanks.
Yeah,
Does that count for my 3 minutes? Like,
No.
what the?
you can keep going.
If there is something with a resolution that's going to make you decide to table it or draw something out, or you have concerns that need to be talked about, I absolutely think that you should approach your colleagues and talk about it. But do they have to come to you and say, we sponsored this bill and we want to know what you think about it every week? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And it doesn't seem like either one of you guys looked into this resolution at all. Like, a lot of the questions that you were asking were answered on the sheet of the resolution, and I just don't understand that. I don't understand why anything that's not immediately within the town board's control is treated as not being a matter of the town, because what we pay for healthcare is a matter of the town. It affects how much money we have to be able to pay for things like the tax increases that are being suggested or things like that. And that's a problem that everybody's dealing with, regardless of what side they're on or who they vote for. You have people who are Republicans who are coming here talking about not being able to afford their medication. So I don't understand why this isn't something that you guys would look at a little bit more seriously before coming here. And I would like to know, like, legitimate Republican feedback, but you guys, you don't cite anything. You just like throw it into this big pie in the sky of like, oh, well, it's obviously not free. Yeah, we know. We know.
Greenwald, you're at 3 minutes, so.
All right, I'll make a motion to extend her time.
I'll
Yeah,
second
sure.
it. We'll give you an additional minute.
There's other things I wanted to talk about. Patrick Lane, Hanley Park, I've been told there's grant money for it. There's a concrete pillar that's sticking out. There's parts of it that are rusted and rotted. Would love to know what's going on with that. We have a lot of kids in our neighborhood.
Jess, I'll talk with you offline because I did.
Yay! Amazing. I also want to say I support good cause eviction. Obviously, I support healthcare. You know, I also don't think it's fair to be tied to employment for people. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and if I didn't have a great supportive husband, I wouldn't be able to be a stay-at-home mom because I would need to be working. And if we want more families and strong families and people who can do that, we have to make that a possibility for them. And then the last thing I wanted to say is Villa Maria College, that stretch has a pretty significant speeding problem. I know I've emailed you guys about it. Just wanted to ask about speed cameras or maybe a speed bump. There were a few residents saying that their cars got, you know, sideswiped or totaled due to accidents, and that just seems like an easy thing we can do to make people's lives better. So I'm happy to talk to you guys after the meeting too, if you want. Sure. I didn't get kicked out this time, so I'll be here. Thank you.
That moves us over to elected officials' comments, starting with the supervisor. Nobody got kicked out tonight. Let's note that first off. I'm sorry. We had a spirited discussion tonight over a very significant policy, and it's something that is typically thought of as the purview of private employers or the federal government. But these big ideas on what to do with things like how to pay for healthcare or how to tax people and to pay for services or what services the government should provide. I mean, they're hardly new, and they don't go back just to the 1990s. They go back to the founding of the country. And when we learn about the Constitutional Convention or the formation of the Articles of Confederation before that, or the American Revolution itself, that 20-year window, or even immediately after, when folks like Thomas Jefferson was trying to advance public education in Virginia, universal education for primary school aged children. Benjamin Franklin was an advocate of progressive taxation, and the writings of Thomas Paine in particular, I'd say he's probably my favorite founder. If you read things like the Rights of Man, the Declaration of the Rights of Man, the ideas for economy that come through there, like a basic income, land value taxes, you would think Thomas Paine would be in this, if you transpose him and put him in this place in time, he would sound like AOC in some of the things he advocated for in his day. So these are ideas and debates we've had going back to the founding of the country, and we get this impression when we read our history books that a certain thing happened and these people won and these people lost and everything gets distilled to a paragraph. But it's fascinating when we read our history to understand how complicated characters are. You know, you look up people like Edmund Pettus. The Edmund Pettus Bridge was named after, and I learned just in the past week that was named after somebody that was in the KKK. You know, it's just that we have these policy discussions, we have these discussion of big ideas, and it's always more nuanced and more complicated than things seem on the surface, and allies and opposition to issues are a lot more complicated. And, you know, when we think about what we want in terms of the good life or what we want in terms of what our country should be, there have been competing visions of how things should work. And it goes back to the founding. So I'm sure we're not going to solve healthcare in 2 weeks. And I'm sure in 20, 30 years from now, this debate will still be raging on. And I will be the first person to admit that I'm a huge proponent of the New York Health Act. But every single day, I'm going to listen to folks like Councilmember Thompson, because he had some good questions tonight about what do you do with employees in the system? How do you find the revenue source? How do you do this? How do you do that? And if we're going to make a system like this work for everybody, we need to listen to its critics and work in those concerns so that way these systems work. The same criticisms came up for Social Security before that was done. How do you fund the revenue source? Who gets included in the program? And in order to get something that big done, the most successful anti-poverty program in human history, the folks that advanced that listened to the critics and they worked with them to build consensus to get that passed through Congress. So I know that's more a historical and philosophical rant than it is what I've done in the past 2 weeks, but I'm just going to stop there and throw it over to Councilman Pilarski.
Right. I had one thing, but now I've got two things because something just came up. So Memorial Day is coming up. It's 13 days away. It'll be Monday, May 25th. It will not be at our usual place. It is not at Town Park. I'm glad to say after 8 years and a long battle uphill, we are opening up Veterans Park at Nob Hill, and we are cutting the ribbon for Neil Bateman Park there, and it'll be a nice ceremony. This thing was in the works before I got on the board. Fourth meeting in on the board here, Glenn Bateman presented to the board at the time and said, hey, I've been here numerous times advocating to rename the park and get a Veterans Park after my brother, Vietnam vet, Purple Heart, and many other awards in that, Maryville grad. He was fighting this battle prior to, and then the board at the time picked up the ball and ran with it. And this board right here, we're crossing the finish line with it, so it's exciting. So it will start at 11:30 at the Francis J. Donovan Post with a procession of motorcycles, first responder vehicles, other military vehicles going from the Donovan Post to Nob Hill Veterans Park. And 12 o'clock will begin the ceremony, and then we will have a ribbon cutting and a few words, and then go back to the Donovan Post for a reception and a Veterans, a Memorial Day event at the Donovan Post. So that's the updates I have for that. And then I was just brought to my attention that the Sabres are currently winning. So let's speed this up.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yeah, with that being
Sabres are
said,
up?
Sabres are up. No, I did have an opportunity to speak with Highway Superintendent Rick Rusniak regarding Christine's issue with Maryville and Beach. He did say that he will do what he can to assist with the highway there. He said he's still trying to figure out who owns the road, if it's county or the town, but he's willing to look into it. So I just want you to know, Christine, that we did acknowledge your request and looked into it quickly. I know I just saw her leave. Yeah, no, I saw her leave. Yeah, it's pretty much what I have. Lots been going on, but just want to say thanks.
So just after the last board meeting, I went on my cop ride along with the Citizens Police Academy. I believe his correct title is Sergeant Miller. Went on him and basically got the hat trick. Caught somebody who was stealing some stuff from the mall. After that, went to basically investigation of a deceased individual, just making sure there was no wrongdoing. There wasn't any. And then as the night was ending, we were like, all right, let's give it one more call, see if something comes in. And a few minutes later, we found a report of somebody at a house. Long story short, they were the individual who shot someone in Buffalo recently. So they found them hiding in the yard, arrested them, found their gun somewhere on the property nearby. So it was great. That was the hat trick of cop ride-alongs. That was really, really good. I don't know too many people in the town who say I don't talk enough, so I'll leave it at that. Have a good night.
Assist.
I did actually point out the guy who was stealing stuff from the mall. Obviously the officer was focused on not crashing, and I was kind of looking, and I saw somebody who was like ducking behind a big box truck, and I was like, I think that's our guy. We got him. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Not taking union labor, right?
I hope not.
Union work, I mean. Councilmember Thompson.
Just a couple things to touch on. I know we talked earlier about changing the site for delivery of e-waste, and my concern was hours and adding more employees, or having somebody that's we're advertising from 7 to 1, but they're scheduled till 3. Are they working till 3, or are they really just leaving beforehand and we're paying them until 3 and they're pushing to have it until 1? So there's a lot of concern that I have about that issue, and I'm hoping to get some answers on that as far as a direction. And maybe we don't have to do it every single day. Maybe it's once a month. We don't need to pay to have somebody there if it's something that's county mandated. To touch on the comments that one of the residents just mentioned, looking at things when they come out on Wednesday. So maybe we don't have a board meeting every 2 weeks. Maybe we just do it virtually, and maybe we just send emails to everybody. But in my opinion, I think it's important to have these discussions in person to continue the open government dealings, because everything should not be through email or a phone call. That was one of the reasons why I ran. So we had these discussions, and we're not just passing everything without discussion. I don't care if people don't tell me what they're putting in. That's not my call. I expect people to put in resolutions without my knowledge. It is what it is. But I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. If you don't agree with it, that's fine. But I think it's very important to have these discussions in the open and not everything behind closed doors.
Councilmember Bukowski, any comment?
Yes. Okay. This week is National Police Week, so I want to acknowledge and thank all our police force, all our men and women, and I appreciate them for all what they're doing. They got a lot of work on their hands and a lot that's been going on. So I just want a special thank you to each and every one of our police force people. Also, May is Military Month. I want to acknowledge anybody and everybody who's in the military or have been, who've got family members on active duty or in the reserves. A special thank you, shout out to them. And this last week at the Senior Center, there were 6 couples that celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. So again, I want to acknowledge them and congratulate them on 50 years of being married to the same person is amazing. And this coming Saturday at Gerlach Post in Sloan, there is a craft show and flower sale. So if anybody's out and about, stop down at Gerlach Post. And that's it.
Rasen Park.
Oh, on the 23rd. Yes, at Rasen Park, which is off of William Street on that side of Sloan. There is going to be a sign dedication at 10 a.m. on the 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Elgigan, any comment?
Okay, in addition to Police Week, again, happy EMS Week. I'll throw in a happy belated Teachers Week, Teacher Appreciation and Nurses Appreciation. And actually today, the county put on a interesting presentation and Cheektowaga was really well represented by different departments and a couple of members of different committees. So it was Safe Street, Improving Roadway Safety for People of All Ages and Abilities. And Ms. Greenwald, this kind of pulls into what you were talking about with Villa Maria College with there are so many streets that people are unnecessarily fast, comes up in any community meeting that I go to, especially our traffic and safety committee members, people go too fast and there needs to be ways of slowing people down. We do not do speed bumps in Cheektowaga just for reasons of the plow, but there are other creative ways of slowing down traffic. So we saw a very interesting presentation. So interested to see where that goes. That's it.
That, I'm going to make a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters leading to the discipline of particular persons, collective bargaining negotiations with the Captains and Lieutenants Association and with the Cheektowaga PBA, matters leading to the appointment of a particular corporation, and also attorney-client privilege. This will be with no action to follow. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned with no action to follow.